Hey, what's up everybody, it's Muse24, and today I'll be taking a look at the Halo 2 Master Chief figure from McFarlane Toys Halo action figure line. The reason I got this particular one is because Halo 2 was always my favorite of the franchise, as far as the games go, and I basically just saw this in Target next to the Reach figures. This is one of the more recent releases that McFarlane Toys has done of the character. I know there are a lot of Master Chief action figures they've released over the years, so which one specifically this is, I don't know because I'm pretty new to these figures. But just know it's one of the more recent ones, and it does have the 26 moving parts, much like the Reach figures. The packaging is different. As you can see, it doesn't say Reach or anything. It just says the Halo collection, and then Halo and the Halo 2 collection, and then there's Halo 2 Master Chief. He comes with two plasma rifles, or the Brute plasma rifles that show up late in Halo 2, the reddish colored ones. And then the back here kind of shows off some of the other figures. There's the Master Chief figure. There's a Marine. We've got a Elite with the Ascetic armor on, an EOD from Halo 3, a Combat Elite from Halo 3. You've got the Mark IV Spartans from the Halo Legends DVD and the Halo Wars game. There's the Arbiter from Halo Wars, Dare from ODST, Brute Captain, and Buck from ODST. So let's get right into this figure, shall we? So now that we got Master Chief out of the box here, one thing you'll notice is that he doesn't have as much color variation as with the other figures, and that has to do with the fact that he wears completely green armor in the three games. There is some silver around the neck there, and on the back of the shoulders, and then the gold for his visor, obviously. And then there's some darker parts that are painted on the back of his armor. So it's not like completely lacking detail, but whereas the Reach figures had some scuff marks on their boots and wear on their armor, the only part that you get of that on Master Chief is on the chest here, which I assume is supposed to be like plasma blast marks, but they just kind of look like black dots. They don't really look like he's had some damage. There's nothing to really distinguish that. Master Chief doesn't seem to be tall enough. You can see here that Emil is almost a head taller than Master Chief is, and part of that has to do with the fact that Master Chief isn't standing completely upright, and I'll get to that when we get to the poseability portion. But even his dimensions seem to be a bit off. I mean, his arms, legs, and head seem to be in good proportion with one another, but the chest and torso seems to be a little bit too big. Maybe that's just me. However, his poseability is a bit better than the Reach figures. His head can rotate 360, although it is a little bit tighter of a rotation just because of how close his neck comes to the armor there. The head can go up and down a very little bit. The torso can go back and forwards, more so forwards than it can go backwards. Can tilt a little bit to the side. Can rotate good distance side to side. The arms can rotate at the shoulder 360, and you can see that there's a little bit of a wiggle here, which is nice. They can go up about the same as the other figures, not terribly far. Can bend at the elbow about, well, a little bit less than 90 degrees. The wrists can rotate 360, and it's a relatively tight rotation, and then can wiggle back and forth. The legs can go that far forwards, which is pretty good, but they really can't go backwards at all, and I'm not entirely sure why it was designed this way. I mean, there's a little bit here that basically blocks it from going further backwards. I mean, if they didn't have that there, you could get him to go all the way back, and then he could pull off some cool running poses or something, but you really can't do that. The legs will rotate above the knee 360, will bend at the knee pretty much 90 degrees. And then the feet can go back and forth quite a bit at this hinge. Can rotate 360. And then the toe can move up and down and can also swing back and forth here, if you can see that. Master Chief's legs can go in and out of the body to the side, but really only so far, and I find that they really can't go in all that far either. You only got about that much distance. Master Chief does come with two weapons, two of the same weapon actually. They are both the reddish brute plasma rifles, and I find these to be a bit of an odd inclusion because they only show up at the very end of Halo 2, and they're not really a weapon that you would associate with Master Chief. I mean, they're Covenant weapons first and foremost, but he only is able to use them in like 2 missions. So, I don't know, I think it's weird they wouldn't have included the SMGs or maybe a battle rifle and a grenade or something like that. You know, something that's more iconic of Master Chief, the UNSC, and Halo 2 itself. When placing the plasma rifles into Master Chief's hand, there's a bit of a different design for each hand. This hand has a much tighter fit, the fingers are closer together, but the rifle is very secure, whereas with this hand, the fingers are pushed further forwards, and the thumb is actually removable, which makes it for a looser fit. I mean, granted, it's easier to get the plasma rifle into this hand, but getting the thumb to go back into that little hole is a bit of a pain. I'm not entirely sure why McFarlane Toys decided to go with a different design for each hand. Why not pick just one and put it on both hands? It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. If you don't want the rifles to go into his hand, you do have the pegs here, and there's a socket on this thigh where you can just push that into it and you can hold it there. Unfortunately, there is not a hole on this thigh, which is very disappointing. You do have these holes on the back of his armor there at the waist. I assume that's for grenades or something. I don't know if there's a different style of putting those on for the normal Halo figures as opposed to the Reach ones. You do have this hole on the back of his armor here where you can stick the plasma rifle into, and it does hold well, but it's technically not how he puts it on his armor in the game, and it just kind of looks goofy. So I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't put a hole on the other thigh here, especially when there's nothing like standing out on his armor here that would prevent it from holding on there. So can I recommend the Halo 2 Master Chief figure from McFarlane Toys? Meh. I really can't say one way or the other with this figure. Its poseability is much better than the Reach figures that I've reviewed so far, but its lack of detail is kind of disappointing, although admittedly it is because of the fact that Master Chief only has one color of armor in the games. However, the little blaster fire marks on his chest are incredibly lazy as far as the paint job was concerned, and his weapons don't seem very befitting of a Halo 2 Master Chief figure. They only show up very late in Halo 2, and they're Covenant weapons. I would have assumed that McFarlane Toys would have gone with something like the SMGs or the BR, something more iconic of both Master Chief and the UNSC. So I guess my final verdict would be this. If you want a relatively inexpensive Master Chief figure that comes with some unique weapons and has some decent poseability, this is the figure for you. But if you want something that's more representative of Master Chief and the UNSC, this probably isn't the one for you. So that's the end of my Halo figure reviews for now. I will be picking up Cat and Carter come January. Don't forget to rate and comment below, subscribe if you like what you see, and with that I will see you guys next time.